So, welcome to our webinar today, this Thursday, very sunny, very warm Thursday, where we are going to be talking about supporting pupil focus at the end of term. As I've said already, you guys you probably know me already from previous webinars. I'm Marianne, the Head of Resourcing and Marketing here at Envision Education, and I'm joined by Colin, who is PPA teacher and music lead at Ricehope Gardens Primary School. Welcome, Colin. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, all good. As I say, trying to stay cool. Have you been able to stay cool at school this afternoon?
I had sports day this morning, and yes, the afternoon though was incredibly hot in the classrooms. So, yeah, very topical given my day.
Yes, yes, I'm sure we'll be coming on to a little bit of that as well. So, right, let's just go into this next bit. Here we go. Right, so again, welcome everyone. Just for a bit of context here, Colin, as well as being PPA teacher and music lead at Ricehope Gardens Primary School, he's actually my partner. And Colin has been working in education now for 2 years. It's his second summer. And I thought, given the conversations that we have after work and after school at this time of year, that he would be the perfect guest for me to have on this webinar today. So, really, thank you so much. He's a very special guest, of course,
You're
for
welcome.
joining me with this. And we want this webinar, I suppose, a little bit different from our other ones, where I'm asking Colin questions, but really sharing sort of some strategies, some ideas, and a few maybe coping mechanisms, I suppose, to manage the next weeks. I suppose it's not even that much now. It depends how long you're in for. But most kids are finishing up next Friday. The end is near. But I thought it'd be a timely one for him to join on, and for me to be able to ask these questions, and he can share what his experiences at the moment and what he's doing over the next coming days. So thank you, Colin.
No props.
Right. Right. Now, first of all, just a little bit of housekeeping as usual. We are recording the session so that it can be watched afterwards online, as I'm sure most of you know. So that means that we've got mics off, cameras off, and we will try and see if we've got time for a few questions or even stories at the end, depending on how this one goes. So if you do have anything that you want to say, please pop it in the chat box. We can come to that at the end. And also for this one, it should be a bit shorter than some of our other ones. We hope everyone then can go and have a nice, relaxing evening, enjoying the weather as well. So, right, here we go. First of all, then, first question. Now, I put this one together because we know that it's common for pupils to be losing concentration towards the end of the academic year, and understanding why this happens can obviously help staff to respond in the right way. So, Colin, why do you think pupil focus tends to drop as we approach the end of term, particularly then, the academic year?
Yeah, I think that there's lots of reasons really. I think the main one, the most obvious one today as well, is the weather will change, and that can have a massive effect on children's ability to focus, keep their attention. They will get flustered and they might get a bit more just frustrated than they usually would be. And they won't really even realize that it might be the weather that's actually causing that. So certainly the weather would be one of them. And also routines might change slightly towards the end of the year as well. There might be more assemblies, there'll be more celebration assemblies, leavers assemblies, and then of course sports day is usually in the summer two term. The summer two term is also for a lot of people the longest term of the year. Ours has been around 7.5 weeks this year, so
Mm.
the same as it does to adults, that will have an effect on children as well. It's a long time for them to expect to be remaining focused. So yeah, certainly changes in routines will be one thing as well. So that's why it's really important when you can to keep as much of your usual routine as possible, but also just keep consistent with your behavior management and the expectations as well.
Absolutely. Well, that leads me on nicely to the next question here, because we're saying with people focus dipping as it is, and staff needing to have these sort of strategies and ways to kind of keep lesson or whatever time they have in school lively, and ensuring that that continues, at least for as long as it can do. the next question is, what practical things can you do to recommend for keeping pupils engaged during these last days, I suppose we're at now?
Yeah, yeah. So as I mentioned, trying to keep as much routine as possible, um, despite the changes and despite the challenges that you're faced with, is really, really important. However, introducing or bringing in music and some of the arts as well, can be really helpful just to keep the kids a little bit more relaxed and doing something that they're enjoying. But I will stress not to make these too difficult. The kids don't really want to have their brains racked or trying to do something particularly difficult when it comes to like maybe DT or something creative with your hands. Just try and keeping it as simple as possible. Maybe even something that they've done before or throughout the year. So one thing that I'll do in my music lessons is that we'll go over just some of the things that they've done before, maybe sing some of the songs or play some of the instruments that they've been learning throughout the year, and something that they're familiar with, and something that you know that they've enjoyed. Um, Also making some of the lessons a little bit shorter from time to time, and maybe just making them into more bite-sized chunks can be quite helpful. But also consider when you can, and when it's appropriate, to bring in some outdoor learning, and maybe take some of the activities that you would usually do inside, maybe bring them outside, just to kind of that fresh air really does make a difference to the children's focus and attention. So yeah, those would be some of the things that I would recommend. However, if your school has potentially a behavior policy or something like that, try and keep as consistent with that as possible, despite the relaxed nature as you go into the end of the year.
So it sounds like sort of maybe lowering some expectations in terms of obviously want to continue learning and development. That is obviously key up until the end, but lowering the expectations of what you can deliver or what they're going to get out of it on that given day. So again, like shortening lessons or bringing in learning in a different way, music, or, various tasks like that. But definitely not lowering expectations with behavior management, because I think there's
No,
been a
no.
bit of experience with you with that at the moment, hasn't there? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, certainly. Yeah. So yeah, at the moment I'm working with a particularly tricky year six class in that yeah, like I say, there's obviously a lot of changes happening in the summer two term. They've finished their SATs, they've gotten over that really huge pressure cooker that they go through at such a young age to get their SATs done.
Mm.
And then there's a lot of anxiety and or excitement for what's coming up, their new chapter in their life. Um, so that can obviously contribute to them having, changes in their behavior, but remaining as consistent as you can with the behavior management policy that your school might have. I've found to be really quite effective, just letting them know that the expectations are still exactly the same. There is something happening in your life right now, but you are still in school, and these are the ways that things go.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, thanks for that one. So, moving on then. So, we talked about then what, the strategies, etc. You've alluded to a few things you're doing at the moment. Tell us a bit more about what you have been up to over the last couple of weeks. It's always good to get those sort of lived examples, even though
Yeah.
it might be sort of more specific to your school environment. I'm sure a fair bit of it can be applicable across different school
Mhm.
contexts. So
Mhm.
yeah, what have you been up to with your classes?
So, so like I say, in terms of the outdoor learning, we've got a great garden at our school, which is really, really useful to take the kids out, even just to have a look and just have a look at the wildlife and things like that is really, really useful. And that can be used as obviously like a movement break, or if the kids are feeling a little bit, you can sense that the kids are feeling a little bit anxious or frustrated, or they're just getting a little bit flustered in the class because of the changes in routine. Just take them outside for a breath of fresh air. If you have a lovely outdoor space, then that's amazing. Sports is something that most kids seem to really take to, and can really be used as something to just give them that movement break, and then they come back into the class with a more positive mental attitude for learning. Um, and those things can be used as either, like I say, a movement break, or that carrot hanging on the end of the string, just to let them know if you're good throughout the day, if we meet all the expectations, and you're doing what we expect of you, then we can go out for 20 minutes playing basketball, 20 minutes playing rounders, whatever it might be. So those things can be really useful.
Yeah, and I think that's important there as well because it's showing, yeah, it's reflecting of the, the time of year. You've got to take, obviously your own school, your own context or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's looking at the things in just a little bit of a different way and knowing that it is a different time of year and the expectations, then are, as we said, different depending on what we're looking at here. But that being a bit more creative and it's actually a time to be because I think, we've talked about different things you've been doing that have sort of surprised you with different pupils that, whilst they might be thinking, oh, yeah, right, summer's around the corner. I don't really need to
Hmm.
bother. It's actually also a moment that some pupils might stand out in a way that they haven't before because the pressure
Yeah.
isn't on them as the usual
Yeah.
time of year. So,
Definitely.
yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
good stuff. Okay, so next one. So, how can staff maintain structure without adding stress for pupils or themselves? So, I think we touched on a little bit about this, and actually, I
Mm.
think the main thing here is really how can staff help themselves? Because I think, I'm sure there's plenty of staff, maybe even including
Mhm.
yourself, that
Mhm.
can feel quite stressed at this time of year.
Yeah.
And whilst again, that we're really near the summer holidays, it just really means again that little dial there with the
Yeah.
picture we've used can really feel like it's going right up. So. How have you found that? What have you been doing, or what have other staff members in your school been doing?
Well, so of course, the changes that I've mentioned previously apply to the staff as well. We are all in the school together. It's been a long time for us, just as much as been a long time for the children. Um, there are obviously changes happening. You might be learning about your new class, or you might be changing class as is happening in our school right now as well. But having to keep that level heads, that level of calmness is essential, really, to maintaining everything that we've been talking about so far. Your responsibility as a teacher hasn't changed. So therefore, you need to be calm with the children. You can't let any of your stresses or any of your worries as we reach the end of the year impede on your teaching or impede on your reactions to the children. Um, so yeah, that's what I would say on that front is just to maintain that level of calmness that you would expect throughout the year.
And what would you give if there's any advice if you feel that there's those kind of moments where it is getting a little bit too much? I'm sure you've seen it. Maybe it's been yourself
Hmm.
as well. You've
Hmm.
not told me about it, but how do
Yeah.
what would you say would be, and maybe it differs as well between teachers and support staff and how they can work together. Yeah,
Hmm.
what would you suggest if there's anything?
Well, so I mean, it depends on different situations. I mean, it's going to be different across the board. But for example, if I'm teaching music on a particularly hot day and kids are particularly flustered, if you've got another adult in the room that could potentially take off some of the children into a breakout room or something like that, these are obviously a lot more common than when I was at school. So breakout rooms and things like that are seem to be much more commonplace. So. If you're lucky enough to have a TA in the room, I would recommend maybe taking out small groups to learn certain parts or do some certain activities separately. Particularly maybe if there's tricky behavior or if there's send issues, to potentially take those children out into breakout rooms to continue doing activities and to continue working as a group, but just to try and maintain a level of calm with the children and the children that are in the class as well.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you very much. Right, on to this one. I think this is, yeah, it's got quite a big one because I think this has been particularly where there have been some challenges that we have spoken about.
Yeah.
The question being, what advice do you have specifically for supporting year six pupils as they
Yeah.
prepare to move on to secondary school? This has definitely
Hmm.
been something we've been speaking
Yeah.
about quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think you've probably got, a couple of examples. I know it's not been easy, so you can start with that and how
Yeah.
that's been going, but also some really, a couple of great moments in actually, yeah, supporting year six pupils with moving
Yeah.
on. So, yeah,
Yeah, sure. Um, Also, there's a massive step happening for these children. So they've got a right to be excited. They've got a right to be nervous. They've got a right to be anxious. And you can actually hear that amongst their conversations sometimes. Some of them that might be a little bit more withdrawn because they actually are a little bit more nervous about what's coming up and how their life is going to change. So I think just reinforcing as much positivity that you've learned about that child as much as possible, essentially. So, I mean, if you found out that a child that might be nervous about something is fantastic at music or art or does great writing, then certainly reinforce that. Tell them to keep doing that, and the things that they will have in high school will support that. You will have more resources, and you will have more opportunities to really get your teeth stuck into some of the things that you really enjoy, and potentially something that has carried you through your primary school education as well. Those things that can continue. Um, so, for example, I mean, I had a year six girl who is very, very tricky from time to time. She answers back a lot. She's just has a lot of behavior issues, obviously not necessarily through fault of her own. But one thing that I completely admire about her is her writing. Her writing is some of the best writing that I've seen in a primary school ever. Even when we were in school, I don't ever remember anyone being quite as good as her. However, her focus and her attention can sometimes wane, but I've just always reinforced keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. And so while she was being tricky in a class the other day, I've said this to her again. And she's cringed and she's tried to walk away and she's not particularly enjoyed the praise. However, a couple of days later, she kind of came up to me looking at her feet and she said, "Oh yeah, remember the thing that you said to me the other day?" And I started cringing, and I was like, "What do you mean about your writing?" And she was like, she said yes, and I said yes, and she said, "Well, yeah, thanks," and just walked away. And from that girl, that was a really precious moment because she's not necessarily forthcoming with emotion. She's not necessarily forthcoming with praise for her teachers. So, in all honesty, that was all she needed to say, and it really made my day. So.
Yeah.
Positive, yeah, more than my day, in fact.
Yeah.
So yeah, positive reinforcement and just trying to keep them, they don't want to go in nervous. It's not going to be quite as bad as they think. So just
Yeah.
try and make them realize that.
Yeah, it's like we've all done it, right? So, and even though it feels like obviously it was a long time ago, but even something like that. And actually, I'd say even from when we were in school, I don't even feel that, we might have, depending on the type of school and the type of pupil you were, not necessarily even had that level of attention. So that would mean a lot for that pupil, even though she doesn't want to show it, even though she's just going to be like, thanks, yep, yep, that she even wanted to come up and say that. It's quite a big step for her and putting her on a path to maybe be more open to praise because we think everyone likes praise, but it works in different ways for different people. And I think particularly, like I say, year sixes, and I know you'd have quick bits on that, they think they know it all until they realise they definitely don't. And that's when they get into year seven and they're no longer the big kids. And
Yeah.
is there anything in particular that you have done in terms of talking to the year six groups about this? How does it work at your school with that? And help, particular sort of transition lessons, or what? How do you go about
Yeah,
it?
so the kids have gone to see most of them are going to the same high school.
Mm.
So most of them actually did a transition day at
Yeah.
the school. So that's really great. We often have a lot of high school children from the local school that most of them will be going to. They come to help out a lot of the time with some of the after school clubs. There was a really, really great number of them today at Sports Day as well. So they get to see the kids, the high school kids in action. They can recognize that they're not all these monstrous teenagers that sometimes they hear about. So lots of different things like that. But then we've also introduced a lot of PSHE lessons that will talk about the change that's going to happen, and just give them a little bit more information so it seems less daunting.
Yeah, that sounds good. And as I say, it is a big deal that they are moving on. Whilst we all did it, it certainly is. And I know that year sixes, yeah, they could potentially be some of the trickier, as we're calling it, pupils at this time of year because they've literally, and I think you say they've gone through a lot. Pressure cooker, I think was a perfect way to sort of put it. And
Mm.
then it's just like combined with the weather, combined with the fact it's the end of the school year and it's summer,
Yeah.
but then also that they are going on, they're leaving that school. And even though they can seem excited or, they don't care about school, it's a big thing. It's a really big
Mhm.
deal to leave somewhere you have spent a lot of time. And that's at whatever age. You could be at a school as a member of staff, you could be like myself working for a business. That is a really big thing to sort of go through. So it sounds like, yeah, that sort of positive reinforcement. And again, you want to, in a way, it's something they might well remember as well, how
Yeah.
that work that was done with them at this point and that little bit of encouragement as they move on, I think is really important. So thanks
Yeah.
for that.
No problem.
Excellent. Right. So really, our key takeaways. So I think I'll go over color. I think the behavior management, maintaining that, but lowering the expectations on what we expect in outcomes of learning and development because we're not at that time of year. That's a key one. What else are we saying here about, oh yeah, obviously keeping calm, trying not to let it stress
Mhm.
get the better of us. Because again, also children will pick up on that. They spot
Yeah,
everything. Nothing
they
gets
do.
past them, right?
No, they
So
really
they're
do.
going to know as soon as you are, isn't it?
Hmm.
And then I think also being a bit, sort of creative with what you can do, knowing it isn't, the be all and end all this time of year, as long as you have them engaged. That's a good thing. And trying to keep that engagement can be really difficult. But I think then, this final one, certainly for year sixes, who can probably, feel like they have been maybe the more challenging pupils at this time. It's really remembering why. It's thinking, actually, there's still a difference I can make. And also, you are going to miss them too, right? As much as they can be how they've been at this time of year, you're going to miss them, aren't you?
Yeah, it's undeniable. You can't help but get an attachment to these kids because as tricky as they are, they've all got something. They've all got something
Yes.
about them. Like, there's always some kind of redeeming quality in there, even in the most tricky kids. So try and find that with the year
Yeah.
sixes. It's
And I think this time of year can be maybe the way that you can actually find it when it might not have hit home before. And you might think, well, I've given them that, off you go. You've got something to
Yeah.
go off with, and it can be a really interesting time. Again, especially when the pressure of that SATs has gone, they're quite emotional, but in different ways because they're leaving. So it could be the key time to do that. And I think
Yeah.
that's a really good one. Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you so much for that, Colin. We are going to see if anyone does want to ask any questions. Feel free to pop your microphone off if you do want to ask. Or I know we've got our lovely Lena who will look into our chat section if there is anything there and draw our attention to it. But just while anyone might be doing that, again, thank you so much for this, Colin. I think it has been, it's certainly useful. And again, it's your second summer doing it, isn't it? So, and it's
Mhm.
very different
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
this
certainly,
time.
yeah. And I was definitely one of these people who you know, didn't necessarily have sympathy for my teacher friends when they would say how difficult the tricky the end of the year is, but seeing is believing.
Yeah, it used to be one of those, oh, well, what are you talking about? You've got weeks off. And now you're
Yeah,
coming up
no,
to me and I'm going,
I
oh,
wasn't.
well,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
completely get it now. No, and that's yeah, and again, it's because it starts to feel like a bit of a pressure cooker for the staff, right? So that's, it
Hmm.
goes that way with it, and then you get
Can
to
do.
breathe a bit, and then it goes really quickly. Okay, good
Yeah.
stuff. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions. I think we've had a good session here covering again. This one's been a bit more light-hearted in terms of just wanting to share, what it's like at this time of year, that you're not alone with anything that you might be going through with your pupils and in schools as well, because and particularly with the weather, it's all great, but it's not great when you're doing it in schools. And there is that distraction, so we do understand, and we thought this would be a good one to just put out there to share as well. So thank you very much, everyone. Our final slide here is just to ask you for reviews and feedback. It is really important for us to get your reviews and feedback. That QR code there takes you to, it's a link that can take you to a Google review or our feedback form. particularly in terms of feedback on this session, but also what you would like to hear more of. We are going to be running them through the summer as well, and it's a great time for us to sort of reflect and see what we've been doing with this webinar series, because we launched this a few weeks ago, and we're having a great time doing it, but we want to make sure we're coming out with the most relevant content as well. So any ideas, any feedback, we really, really welcome. So I'll leave that there for a moment, but you will get an email as well from Lena, inviting you to leave some feedback or leave us a review as well, which then takes me on to our final slide for today, which is our next webinar. So it's Switch Off and Stay Sharp this summer. It's going to be, as I say, more about focusing on what you can do, to make sure that you do switch off over the summer. But there are other things that you can do that kind of keep you focused ahead of September, but definitely making sure that you have some time for yourself and relaxing. And that's going to be on Wednesday, the 23rd of July. With time TBC, because I think most people are finished up by then, aren't they, Colin? I think it depends on the borough you're in and the school you're in, but we will be letting you guys know about that by tomorrow then, so look out for that in your email. So we'll leave it there. Again, thank you so much, Colin, for
Thank
joining us
you.
today. It's been a
No
pleasure for
problem.
me being able to interview you. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Stay cool, enjoy the weather, and I'll catch you soon. Thank you.